with minimalistic styling, cherry MX Brown switch, and a very well price of $99.99. Is this the board you should be getting? Find out more. I'm Rio Gion, and this is Rio Gion Keyboards. Normally I would say the board looks very minimalistic and I absolutely love the styling, but since this is actually a main selling point, I guess it's time to criticize it. And what I do not like about this particular look is those cooler master window keys. If they were to just replace them with regular window keys, then they would absolutely complete that perfect minimalistic look. It looks very sharp, and it can look much sharper with those keycaps pulled out. Replace it with regular Windows key, and voila, this keyboard will completely go under the radar, which is absolutely fantastic. I really like the fact that they included rubber feet on the stands to keep the board planted while lifting, and cable management slots. That's a very nice touch that they have. On the back with those rubber feet, keeping the board once again very planted either up or down. And you notice that the cable isn't there because the cable is detachable. And that's what's so great about it. And not only that the cable is detachable, it's braided. And not only that it's braided, it has gold USB tips. It does not get any better than this in terms of the back and the cable. Instead of a software you would typically download, this particular board comes with manual control, with the upper right hand corner being 4 profile buttons, which means you are only limited to 4 different types of profile. That's actually not that bad, but my main concern is with how you control the functions that you want it to. For example, if I were to turn on and off the lights, I can. If I wanted to brighten or dim the lights, as you can see there, nothing really happens. Which is one of my concerns. It's either I am doing something wrong, and if that was the case, please correct me in the comments below, or is this particular board having that issue? That's something that I do not know. However, I do like the fact that the per key lighting feature works absolutely perfect. It does exactly what I expect it to do, and it's a very nice feature to have. Now, another trouble is that, say I want to actually set up macros. It doesn't work. Once again, maybe I am not reading the manual right, maybe I'm not pushing the correct buttons, or maybe it is the board itself. But for those of you that actually own this particular board and know how to properly set up macros, please let me know, because this is basically what's happening. I try to set up macros, it has one blinking key, then I try to push function on that particular key to see if it actually does anything. It doesn't do anything. Then I try to reset the macro or delete it and then re-record it. I actually consulted the manual too, and that didn't seem to work. So if it's the board itself, then oh well, that's just the board itself. But if it's me doing something wrong, please comment down below. I really would like to know how to properly use the macro functions, because I believe that it should work. This is actually a very good keyboard for FPS gameplay. The Cherry MX Browns are very smooth and you can hold them for long durations. In terms of MMOs, it's very nice to know that you actually can set up macros, which is very good. Although I would very much like the additional bank of macro keys. However, I understand that it will ruin the aesthetic look of the board if there is an extra bank of macro keys. But then again, you get to actually set up macros, assumingly that you can. I could not, but that could have just been me. So if you can, I say this is a pretty decent board for MMOs. In terms of RTS, I say it's also good, but it's gonna be nowhere as good as reds for quickly double tapping, nor is it gonna be as good as blacks for not making mistakes. So overall, I would say this is the jack of all trades with the ability to macro. It just absolutely amazes me how this particular board can feel cheap even though it's a Cherry MX Brown. It's just something about how the chassis communicates with the keycaps that just does not feel as sturdy as, let's say, the Mad Cat Strike TE, the one that I reviewed before this. That one does not feel cheap even though it's Kale, and you would assume that the Kale switch would feel cheaper, but it doesn't. This one does, and that is kind of mind-boggling because rarely yet ever do I type on Cherry MX switch that I feel is cheap, and this is one of them. Amazingly so. It is actually very cool of Cooler Master to include a wire keycap puller for $99.99. That's actually not that bad considering that the keycap puller, the wired one, costs around $5 to $8, maybe $10. It's actually a very nice addition on top of the features that the board has. And once again, $99.99 with Cherry MX Brown, by the way. Even though it feels kind of cheap, at least you still get Cherry MX Browns. It's actually a very good deal. Now, I'm guessing the reason why it feels cheap is because of the chassis. This is the same chassis as the one on the light version, which has the mecha membrane type of deal. I might cover that next, by the way. And that's probably why it feels kind of cheap. It's because it uses the same chassis. Now, you can go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not, then that's pretty much the only flaw with this particular board. That, and of course, well, I cannot personally macro the board, but that's just me. I will not count that against the board. But besides those things, for $100, you certainly will have a hard time doing better for $100. That is for sure. As of right now.